I actually do want to get a little bit of a to and fro, sort of building on the point of the movie, because Billy, you talk about how you have the remark in the movie about how you're not, quote, turned on by comic book movies, and I know you don't mean by that specifically a movie from a comic book, because a movie from a comic book could be wonderful.
Sure.
So when you
say glorified comic, I actually quote him. He said glorified comic.
So that's why we don't have the boxing gloves out here. What do you mean by that? And let's talk a little bit about that in terms of where story is at right now in Hollywood.
Sure.
Because story is really not very important on the face of it to mainstream tentpole movies right now.
Here's what I meant. A friend of mine who's a producer was told by an executive at her studio this week, "Please don't bring us anything good." That's a quote. And the explanation was, look, all we're making is tentpole movies and high concept comedies, so if you bring us something really good, we might be tempted to buy it, but we're never going to make it, so please don't put us in that position. Now, that may be the nadir of civilization as we now know it. I don't know. I hope there's not a bottom beneath that bottom. I love Iron Man. I think that's a great achievement. And I love Jaws, and I love Back to the Future. And I'm not a snob about popcorn movies. Here's what I'm a snob about. I am a snob about the idea that that's all we can live on as a business. It's true, we all have to be businessmen to one degree or another. We all have to make a living, just like the studios have to make a living. But we are also custodians of this uniquely, for me, American art form. And the mantle of ownership of that art form has been handed to a group of people who are just not worthy of it. And that's what you're up against at this particular point in time. I think that's bad for everybody. I believe in my heart, I've never met Rupert Murdoch, but I believe in my heart that if someone came to him and said, "We have figured out a way to turn your film business into a car wash and you'll make 2% more every year," he'd do it. Well, that's a scary prospect for someone like me because I think movies are important.
And you're allergic to chamois.
as a part of the fabric of our culture.
Why do you think that Rupert Murdoch would do that?
Because who needs the headache of the film business if you don't?
I'm just pointing out. I'm not speaking for him or against him, but I'm just saying. I agree that the market forces and the general state of Hollywood, it's problematic that there's not. There's clearly a huge problem. In fact, I was just talking about this with two studio executives, one of whom I'm married to, and we were discussing the fact that this is a very bad situation in terms of we're not nurturing exactly the kind of movies that 3 years from now everyone's going to be yearning for. There isn't enough diversity in terms of the production. And I don't know, maybe it's possible that Rupert is sitting up in his tower and planning things and maybe even worse things. Seriously, I don't know. But I actually don't think, I know that the very people that I often have made comic book movies for don't like comic book movies. And they wish that they were making exactly the kind of movies that all of us, that you listed up there. So I actually think it's something you see a lot in Hollywood, which is a tendency to personify what's going wrong, to say, and I don't mean to, Billy and I are friends, so I'm not picking on him here, but I do think it's instructive for everybody, is to a certain extent, it is a systemic problem and not a problem of a few people making the wrong decisions. That's my viewpoint, even though I argue every day with everyone about everything involving the movie business. It seems like the people who are most sad about the movies they're not getting to make are the very people who made that comment, who would make that comment about don't bring us anything good. I think it's an almost cynical and, despairing reaction to the nature of how the business is evolving right now.
They've kind of backed themselves into a corner now, because to open a movie, just marketing, $70 million, $80 million, that's an insane number. If you are going to spend $100 million making it, another $80 million marketing it, think about how much that movie has to make just to break even. Well, if you've got to make that much to break even, you have to make what they call in the business a four-quadrant movie, which means it's got to appeal to young males, young females, slightly less young males, and slightly less young females. They don't really give a damn about anyone who's over 25. But the point is, if you're trying to make a movie for everybody, by definition, you're making a movie for nobody. You have to rob the movie of its point of view, because if it has a point of view, it might offend somebody, and you might lose one of those quadrants. Therefore, you can't make an interesting movie. And if the movie's not interesting, then it's just junk food. And it's very tough, with those being the parameters put in place by the system, to make a movie that actually does have a point of view and actually has some resonance to it.
To me, it's just about getting to tell lots of different stories and make lots of different movies and keep doing what I love doing for a long time, you know? And so, and if things, and you know, if you run into roadblocks, you know, if suddenly a kind of movie that I'd rather make now is not in fashion, I can't get it made now, it's like, I kind of think of it, pursuing a career in Hollywood, like the navigational system in your car, where it tells you where to go, you know, but if suddenly there's a you know, construction, and you take a turn that it didn't tell you to take, it'll say, recalculate it, recalculate it. So you have to always be recalculating your trajectory through your career, you know? So just find different ways to be excited about lots of different things. It's actually a very exciting time, too, in the world of entertainment. As frustrating as some of the things that we've talked about, and those are real, it's also, you know, there's a whole new world for young filmmakers, because now it's never been less expensive to make a movie. You could make a movie for free today. You know, when I was growing up, at the minimum, you needed thousands of dollars, you know what I mean? Now you can literally shoot a movie on your consumer brand camcorder, you can edit it on your laptop, and you can distribute it on YouTube entirely for free, you know, and it can reach a global audience, you know? And somebody is gonna make today's version of Easy Rider. And what I mean by that is, okay, the studios were dying, people, you know, the studios didn't know what everybody wanted to see, movies weren't making money, and some rebellious young guys made Easy Rider, and suddenly this whole new world opened up, and it was a huge hit, and now suddenly the 70s Renaissance began, right? So somebody now is gonna come up with that one movie that's gonna somehow tap into today's zeitgeist, and is gonna tap into some new way of being seen that hasn't been thought of before. Everybody's trying to figure out how to do it, but nobody's done it yet, and it's going to change the model completely. So that's an exciting prospect too. Things are going to completely be reinvented today or next year or whenever, but you just have to work on things that you're excited about. And listen, I mean, to be employed in Hollywood is a great thing enough to be excited about.
These
you know what
days
I
to be
mean?
employed anywhere.
Yeah, so like if it's underdog, you know what I mean? Like I know what you're saying. Like this is not like my artful, you know, most meaningful project, and I didn't wake up, you know, sweating in the middle of the night because I had to write it down. I understand what you're saying, but it's great to have a job, you know. So I ain't complaining on any front.
Okay.
Well, I was just going to say that, you know, I think one of the things that we do that is exciting and wonderful is that we have, because, you know, media is so powerful and reaches, you know, billions of people, that we have the ability, if we do our jobs right, to put our fingerprints on the culture. You know, any one of us on this panel and many people in this audience could write the line, the phrase, the moment that captures who we are and what we want to do and who we want to be at this point in time in history. And, you know, that person will create something that will, you know, live literally, as long as there are people to repeat the story. You know, and any one of us, could write, a line like, in Casablanca, for instance, and I think that's part of the seduction of what we do as screenwriters. And, I work in the theater and I love the theater, but, on any given night at the theater, there'll be 200 to 500 people in the audience. The show will run 8 performances. If it runs for 6 weeks, I'm lucky. That's great, and I love it, but the idea of having, literally millions of people, and some of whom might remember a line that you wrote and will repeat it to their kid, and the kid will go to school and repeat that line, and it becomes part of, the dialogue of our culture at any time, is an amazing sliver of power that we have.